Hello, darlings. How are you doing? It has been a while since I have posted a video on some creative musings, but that desire is really strong lately. And I thought I really want to play with this and see what happens. So, in full transparency, I've probably started recording this 4 or 5 times and got a little bit like, oh, what am I talking about? You know why? Because I was trying to make something clever out of the things that I really wanted to talk about and share with you today, which, to be honest, only arose this afternoon, despite having a Google document that I printed out last week with a very set and clear list of things that I would share with you. But you know what? Isn't that amazing? And I really want to go with the what is present and alive in me right now. And as I say that, actually, I've got goosebumps happening on my arm, which for me personally, I really follow that more and more. I follow the dialogue that my body creates with me more and more these days. And particularly this feeling of what I will call aliveness, this excitement. Now, sometimes that is this like, yes, excitement in the body. There's a response in the body that is drawing me towards something. Can be quite a sense of kind of urgency forwards. And sometimes that aliveness in the body feels a bit, oh, it's uncomfortable. It's like, oh, butterflies in the belly, a little bit of anxiety in the belly, a little bit of fear present. But for me, that's also to be celebrated because, again, it means I'm alive. If I was feeling nothing as I move through life, then yeah, I wouldn't be happy about that personally. And in some ways, I wonder if it's quite a new thing, a relatively few years old thing, even maybe not even that long, of using my body's aliveness as a navigation system to move through my life. Now, this aliveness is something that we all know. We felt it when we were young, when we were little. We follow things just like that. And we could change our minds just like that and follow something else. And once something didn't hold that same aliveness for us, we'd move on to something else. Big part of what connects with aliveness is curiosity. And I would say that curiosity, I think, is one of my main values. So I would say it's quite a superpower when we use it to navigate life. It's something that can lead us out of fear. And I will be creating a video around fear and living a creative life, seeing as that's something that I've had to really navigate probably most of my life. I know that one as well as one can know something. Also, curiosity is very, if you feel into the word curiosity, it's very delicious. It has a juiciness, it has a movement to it. It's got a kind of syrupy, as I say, it's a soul quality to it. It has a slinkiness and a sensuality, curiosity. And what it does is it always leads us towards life, towards being in relationship to something else. Now, another aspect of aliveness is how much our creative fire gets stirred within us. And fire is the theme really that I wanted to talk about today. And it's come up in 3 separate things. It's a fancy word, isn't it? Things, not fancy word, but see 3 separate ways that's been brought to my attention over the last, I would say only last week, really. And all of these are embodied in creativity, in art, in many ways. So the first I'd like to share with you, what's really struck me, was a movie that I only saw this afternoon. And it's a National Geographic documentary about Maurice and Katia Kraft, who were French volcanologists. So they studied volcanoes. Volcanologists? They were born I think within like 20 kilometers of each other in a town in France. And then they found each other, fell in love with each other, but also happened to share an absolute love, maybe even slash obsession with volcanoes, with wanting to understand this incredible earth made, extraordinary, awe-inspiring in the absolute correct use of the word, events that happened, these structures that were created from the movement of the plates of the earth, whether they were being pulled apart, the plates, or whether they were colliding and creating friction that would then kind of explode. Actually made me think of like that sense of being frustrated, actually, yeah. You think about like somebody's anger being held in and it rages out and it's volcanic and it's quite violent and all these other words that begin with V, virile perhaps as well. So anyway, getting a bit kind of sidetracked there. And there's a lot of material that the filmmakers have to put this extraordinary movie together because Maurice and Katia recorded everything. They took photos of everything, they filmed everything. And you could say that they lived their life as art, and their art, their study of volcanoes, was their life. And I am fascinated by that. It's living as that which they absolutely love and brings them aliveness and excitement. And there was other undertones that were explored in the movie about their disappointment with humanity. I mean, let's be honest, let's just take a pause here. I do believe we're in some kind of apocalypse right now. And if I had an apocalyptic bingo card, I'm sure at some point frogs or fish would fall from the sky. There would be flying locusts, which actually, now I think about it, I think there has been reports of flying locusts the last couple of years in somewhere in Africa, I think. But, it is a bit of a shit show, isn't it? It's been a tough few years anyway. And it's almost like we're living in a parody of the film. What's it called now? It's not called The Idiots. There's a film that is about us living a few thousand years down the line. Idiocracy, that's it. Highly recommend Idiocracy, because if you watch that film, you will totally be like, oh my God, we're kind of living in that, like the idiots all ruling the world. Say no more. So they turned away from being political, actually, and being activists and feeling that that was quite arrogant of man, interesting, and turned towards their shared love and studying volcanoes. And in a way, actually, that love affair kind of found its way back to them, connecting more to humanity again, when they realized that part of what they were doing, or big part of the meaning and purpose of what they're doing, was to be able to inform people, to inform those countries where volcanoes might erupt, when that might happen, even though they can never pin down an exploding volcano or erupting volcano, but certainly to teach people about evacuation and hopefully save lives from some of the tragic natural disasters that have befallen whole towns and villages and cities due to volcanoes in the past. Life is art and art is life. Sadly and tragically, they died when a volcano in Japan, I think it was 1985 if I remember, erupted, and they were too close and they died together. And yet they both had a sense that they might die doing what they were doing one day. They'd kind of resigned themselves that they would let what they love kill them, which I used to have this quote on my desk for quite a while, and it actually was really helpful for me. I found it really inspired me. And it's a Charles Bukowski quote, basically saying, do what you love and let it kill you. And basically Maurice and Katia did exactly that. I mean, it's pretty extreme, but their art form, they were scientists first and foremost, but maybe there's a link back again to science and art and let's add some religion in there, the awe-inspiring of nature, and you've got that Holy Trinity back together again, that at some point or other church kind of separated religion and art and science. An extraordinary movie, captivating, and I highly recommend it. Some of the imagery is just literally mind-blowing. Talking of blowing, no, we're not going to go into anything a little salubrious here, but maybe that's just my dirty mind because I have a dirty mind. The other place where fire has been a part of my interest and attention over the last week or so is in the series Blown Away. It's a Netflix series. There have been 3 seasons so far, and a Christmas special I was delighted to discover a few days after I'd binged the 3 series. And it's one of those reality competition. You start with 10 people, they get a theme each week in their chosen creative medium, and then one person wins something amazing at the end. So Blown Away follows these 10 glass makers, glass blowers, and wow, 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 wow. I was indeed blown away myself for many reasons. I was really struck by, well, first of all, the extraordinary things that they created. I've never been a massive glass artist fan. Just, yeah, it's never really kind of drawn me in, glass art. Maybe I've just seen a lot of shit glass art everywhere. But what some of these people created was absolutely incredible. So there's that side of it. But what I was really fascinated by is how they're using this material. This very natural material that changes. That there is this pure, proper alchemy happening. And it's fierce. There again has to be the sense of awe that each of the glass makers, glass blowers, did indeed demonstrate. And it's very, very physical. They have to use their whole bodies. It's quite a choreography, I guess would be the word. And they have to be strong. Like dancers, they have to have a strong core. They have to have a strong back, muscles. They have to have quite a resilience because it's hot in there. I think the ovens were like 2000 degrees Fahrenheit. So they are sweating a lot. I think one of them said they have to drink about like 7 or 8 liters if they're working in the hot room by the furnaces. And also something which I found quite interesting is that the possibility of failure is quite high because the material is unpredictable, because the glass cools very quickly. So you have to work on it. When it cools, you have to flash it, heat it up again. I've learned things. And then manipulate it again. Sometimes the inevitable happens and it breaks. You could be hours along on something what seems extraordinary, and then it breaks. What these glass blowers demonstrated was something breaks. Yeah, it's fuckery. You just start again. So there's a real stamina and there's a real commitment to staying with something incredibly engaging. Again, thinking about the Fire of Love documentary, that need and necessity to be present, to be really engaged with, to look after oneself as much as possible, to have a sense of what's folly and foolish and what's safe, and how to explore and walk and navigate the edge of uncertainty. So obviously, both of those are working with the medium. There is fire, whether as the scientist or whether as the artist. But then just to add one more, just because I like the number 3. So I've been reading some amazing books recently. I've got into short stories, quite macabre, quite gothic short stories. So not traditional horror, but certainly deeply unsettling and incredibly imaginative. You could say almost kind of magic realism, actually, stories. So not pure horror, that that doesn't really engage me, apart from horror films. There's a love of mine, but that's something else completely. And there's a writer, an Argentinian writer, who I've just been loving her short story. She's called Mariana Enriquez. And the book that I just finished is called Things We Lost in the Fire. And the last story is the same as the title story. And it's a very odd story of women being set on fire and burned and surviving. And it touches upon burning women and how we were burned for being witches, for doing what we love, for working with the land, for making art out of lives, whether that's in herbs or tinctures, honoring and being in, again, the sense of respecting and devotion to the power of plants, the power of this form of the earth. I thoroughly enjoyed that story, and I highly recommend her books. So there you go. There's a kind of three things to do with fire. But following your own aliveness, what does that look like? So I'm completely inspired by all three: this film today, the book that I've been reading, and blown away. And I love watching things like that as an artist, about other people's creative process, about other people's relationship to their art. And it's very easy to be a bystander. It's very okay to simply be the one that enjoys. I'll certainly be enjoying some more episodes of The Sandman this evening. Adaptation from Neil Gaiman. I love Neil Gaiman. From his now 30 years old graphic comic series, which is just marvelous when it came out. But we can use that inspiration. We can use that excitement, coming back to the body again, what it gives us, that feeling to go off and, a little bit like the glass blowers, really, to mold that into something that is uniquely ours, that has our vision, that has our voice, that has our expression into life, whatever that might be. Making art life and life art, for me, is now a matter of, well, of course it is. You could say, for me, that's my meaning, my why for how I'm desiring to live, and also infusing it through, whether it's writing, whether it's performing, whether it's creating my courses, whether it's coaching people one-to-one, whether it's mentoring young creative people, whether it's through the work that I'm doing. Everything feeds back in. And if we let it turn to dust, to disintegrate, it can be put back together and reborn as something new. But to make our life art requires of us a commitment to that. It requires of us to follow our own weird, WYRD originally, which I've just learned is the same as a daemon. Yeah, not a demon, but a daemon, the genius that we're all born with. We're all born with our own weird. And sadly, life from a very young age doesn't like us being our own type of weird. Because if we're our own type of weird and we have our own unique desires to explore and curiosities to follow, then why would society allow that to happen? We would be unruly, and not just unruly, we would be powerful in what it was that we were able to gift life, to give to the world. And sadly, a society that runs primarily on fear as the motivator to stop any kind of juicy, curious capacity to dance at that point of life and death and awe. It just doesn't suit that bigger sense. So my invitation for you, especially where we are in life now, where we are at this point of the year, just as something to maybe to be curious about, is what is your own unique weird? What is that thing that you love so much that one part of you would be willing to die for that, that would kill for that? What is that part of you drawn to that makes your body's aliveness and excitement and the hairs on your arms stand up and your body to get all oof, kind of turned on, actually? And it doesn't have to be huge. It doesn't have to be something spectacular and extraordinary. I'm not even going to give a list. I was going to give a list of things it could be. I'm going to allow you to be curious about that and let that thing be the thing. However weird it is, it's yours. Give yourself to that. Bow to that. Learn from that. When we put down that sense that we know everything, when we embrace the uncertainty with that risk that we could fail, that could shatter and break whatever that is in the form that we want it to be in, that we're enjoying, but that we can choose because of our resilience and stamina to turn back and start over and try again. In a weird way, then, we beat death because we're allowing ourselves to be fully immersed in the unpredictability of life, in the joy of life, in the joy of those moments that ask of us our attention, our presence, to be understood a little more, to be in relationship to. And that is priceless. That is an antidote to death in many ways. And as for Maurice and Katia, they turned their fear into curiosity. That desire to understand, that love was stronger than fear. Now, I'm not saying go out there and let yourself be killed, but in some ways I am. To be killed by life, to make your life art, to own every single corner of the frame, every photograph, every moving recorded image, every moment where your body is on board, sweating and aching simply because of love. I have no idea if this video even really makes sense, but all I really want to say is follow your aliveness, particularly at times that we're living in right now. We need that. We need it. Our soul, our self, our children need that. Our community needs that. Our survival and life needs that, even if the whole world just goes up in fire at some point anyway. It's worth it, 100%. So, my darlings, I will be back soon, perhaps with a video that I was originally going to be sharing, or perhaps just some other things that have come in. Allow yourself to live and make it all art, darling, because it simply is. Thank you. I would love to know your thoughts. What brings you aliveness? Do share with me if you want to, and do share this video if you want to as well, if you found it inspiring or interesting or informative. And also thank you for listening to the end if you have done so. I know we have short attention spans these days. Personally, I love listening to people going on and on. It's a bit like having the radio on, so maybe I can be your radio as you're going about your day. You can say. Okay, my loves, take care, and I will see you very soon.